Hi, I'm Will from Tested.
I'm Norm from Tested.
Norm, the day is upon us.
Today is the day that you can download iOS, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5,
but 6.
6. That's the one.
Cinco.
No, almost.
Siente.
Almost got it. Let's not do that again.
Cuatro.
If you have an iPad 2 or newer or
Seis.
an iPhone 3GS or newer, like the iPhone 4,
like
the 4S,
this one right here.
like you have a 4S right now,
Yeah.
you can download the newest version of iOS. Every year, Apple has introduced a new version of iOS, introducing many features, some of which are useful, Notification Center,
Yes.
for example. Some maybe not so useful, things that we don't care for over time.
So I've been using this for the last several weeks, maybe even a month or two at this point, in beta form, because they give early access to developers, obviously. There are a few totally awesome things about it that I want to talk about right now. You mentioned the Notification Center, first off. You can now tweet and Facebook directly from the Notification Center, which means I think I'll probably actually use the Notification Center on occasion.
That was one of those things that on paper sounded great, but in practice, it was difficult to manage, and I never really want to pull down the Notification Center to check emails.
I just look at the weather usually, yeah. And it becomes a great big mess full of horrible messages. And Dan Meisner's birthday, apparently. So yeah, let's. The biggest thing I like, my favorite feature, is really straightforward. It's something that carries over from old feature phone days. Would you give me a call, Norm?
I can do that right now.
Amazing that we have this queued up.
Dialing you on the phone.
Yes. And it's gonna in a moment say, "Oh hey, Norman Chan, mobile." And see, I could answer or decline, or I could go over here on the right side where there's this thing and it says, "Oh wait, reply with message or remind me later." So I'm going to reply with message this time. I'm going to say, oh, okay. It gives me a preset list of messages like, I can't talk right now, call you back in a bit, or I'm on my way, or can't talk, what's up, or custom.
And these are audio messages that you've recorded beforehand.
No, these are iMessages. So you'll get a text message back that says that, which you should have just gotten.
I did.
What does it say?
It says, can't talk right now, ellipses. I can't talk right now.
So call me again, and I'll show you something else.
But I'll call you back in a bit. So this is for, in case you're in a meeting.
In case you're in a meeting or at a club or, in the bathroom,
just
perhaps?
so you know, when I dialed you, I actually hit your voicemail as you were replying to that text message.
And I just got a voicemail message from you that says, mobile, transcript failed. Thanks, Google Voice. So that's obviously one of the big changes in the phone stuff. You can FaceTime over 3G now if your carrier supports that. This time I'm going to say, remind me later in 1 hour or when I leave. So you can location gate that or time gate that depending on how you want to behave.
And this is important for if you're in a meeting at the office and you just can't take like a personal
Say you're
call.
getting your tires changed, you're checking out. You want to be reminded when you get back in the car and get on the road. Boom, when I leave is perfect for that.
One click, call back mom.
I actually use that fairly regularly. FaceTime works over 3G if your carrier supports it now. That applies to the 3rd gen iPad, the iPhone 4S and 5 only, though.
And also will depend on your carrier. So, for example, if you are on AT&T, you cannot use FaceTime over cellular unless you are on their new mobile share plan.
That's the case for Verizon as well, is my understanding.
But for new accounts from Verizon, that is the only option that you're given.
Yes. One of the other big changes to Mail is, this is Mail. The Mail client has changed. I've been using Sparrow for a long time. I used Sparrow through all of iOS 5 pretty much. So it's difficult for me to say whether this is objectively better. There's one feature that I really, really like in this, and that's the ability to set VIPs. I'm getting all sorts of messages about these voicemails.
Demonstrate that.
So these are VIPs. I have in your contact card, which I'm not going to show because it has all sorts of phone numbers and stuff, said that Norman Chan, Joey Famelli, and Adam, and all these other people are VIPs, right? What that means is that when I get an email message from you, I can set notifications to behave differently than they do for every other person on my list. And I'm going to show you what that looks like now. I'm getting so many text messages right now. Thanks, Chan. So I'm going to go to notifications, which is over here. And I'm going to go to mail. I'm going to go to mail. It's not in here.
Yes, yeah, it is.
It's in sounds.
Okay. Or notifications.
Must be a notification. So this is one of the things that's still confusing. They've added new things to iOS so consistently over the last 2 years that they don't go in the right places. They don't go in the same consistent places. There's no reason for there to be mail. Here we go, VIPs. So you can configure VIP mail alerts differently than each account's mail alerts, basically. Which means I don't have to get buzzes for the 300 spam messages I get every day just from the 5 people that actually matter.
In addition to VIPs, can you create groups of people?
I wish you could keep groups of people or rules of people would be great too. It'd be fantastic if you could say, okay, everybody from this domain gets buzzed through for, like, say, your business or your family's personal domain or something like that. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. Next on the list, let's talk about maps. Do you like to use maps?
Yeah, I love the maps on iOS. It was one of the best things that was introduced in the very first iPhone.
Get ready for change.
For Google, it was Google Maps implemented, but of course, with all previous versions of iOS, there was no good navigation. You had to buy something like a TomTom app.
Yeah, and I would argue that the TomTom app wasn't that great for
like $50
for nav, turn-by-turn nav. So you could get a printed out list of directions and say go here and go here and go here, but you had to keep paging through that manually. It was kind of a pain in the ass. Apple has redone the maps. They're taking their data from TomTom, as you can see right here, data from TomTom and others, and they've added a couple of things that are kind of neat. First is this 3D flyover mode, which it takes a little bit to load in. It's not. It's neat. I can't imagine ever actually using this, but
how close can you get?
Well, I mean, let's see.
Is it as useful as a Street View?
You want to go see our office? No, it is much less useful than Street View so far.
So I don't know what is the scenario that I would be using this.
That is a fantastic question, Norm. I don't know what the scenario that you would be using this is either.
Because Street View, I could imagine using if I want to know like what the building I'm going to looks like.
Street View, I would describe as eminently useful. This, not so much. I can't find our office.
Well, let's not give away our office location just yet. So this is using TomTom. There's this fancy 3D view, but you can also still use a 2D view.
Of course.
And the 2D view is now based on vector graphics. So theoretically, when you zoom in, it doesn't have to re-render.
No, it scales the lines that you have. So basically, you don't kind of page in maps anymore. It just kind of not dithers. It's almost like tessellation, but for 2D vectors. You just get less and less complexity the more you zoom out. And of course, you can tap to see where you are and all that kind of stuff. I found that was pretty good. It doesn't let you cache apps like the Android Maps app does.
Cache maps, yep.
Or like TomTom does, which would be really handy. Yelp is integrated, so if you search for, say, restaurants.
Let's go find some good
Actually, I'm going to just search for food. I think I just put a bunch of people's phone numbers up there, so that was smooth.
All right.
So it picked the 3 restaurants next to us. Here's the taqueria that you like to go to.
I love that taqueria.
Taqueria Dos Amigos.
Yep.
Only 2 friends for that guy.
So what can you do with Yelp here?
So it's hooked into Yelp. When you go to the card, that information comes from Yelp, and it'll say it has things like, do they deliver? Are they open now? Is it good for kids?
Now on Yelp, there's OpenTable integration. Is that ported here as well?
You get OpenTable integration with Siri. I don't believe you can OpenTable integrate with this, and it does give the rating and the number of reviews and stuff like that. So you I think you actually have to have the Yelp app installed for this to work, but it's much less necessary than it ever was before.
And I presume there's a way to launch right into the Yelp app and hit the page. The Yelp page.
It's maybe more info on Yelp. That takes me right to the Yelp app.
Right to the Yelp app. And on here, you can also book a reservation if it's restaurant is supported.
Now, we'll talk about that in a minute because that's kind of the reservation stuff's kind of cool. Now, there's some things that are missing. So say I want to get here and I want to get directions. I want to get directions to here. There are walking directions. Oh, buses. Why there's a bus here again? That's crazy. Oh, so the bus directions points you to a routing app, which there aren't very many available yet. We're recording this obviously prior to the release of iOS 6. I'm hopeful that things like Route C Pro and those kinds of apps will re-release new versions that include directions.
But unlike in the previous version of Google Maps, where you can, when you search, you can hit that tab for traffic direction or
for
public transit,
Yeah.
and you get all sorts of trains, buses.
Yeah, it tells you how much you're going to have to pay, how far you have to go.
It tells you all the times also.
Based on Google stuff. That's all gone now, of course.
That sucks.
That sucks a lot. Walking directions are still in. There's no bike directions at all. There's not even an option for bike directions.
You shouldn't be biking using your iPhone at the same time anyway.
Well, that is fair advice. I think that losing the public transit directions, I was in Portland last weekend and it was a huge hassle.
So in addition to changing the map, the back end, they've also added navigation, something that iOS users have wanted for a long time. Let's see how that works.
I'm going to navigate us to One Infinite Loop.
Okay. Home of Cook and Schiller.
Yes. You'll note, hey, look, it's the Maps icon.
That is it. Still same Maps icon.
Same Maps icon. I'm going to go directions to here. I'm going to do car directions, and this will start talking to me, just like a TomTom app or something like that would. Now they've made some changes from the last beta to the RTM, which is what we're running right now. It's a little bit less spammy than it was during the beta.
Now, in terms of spammy, you mean how
Voice
often
spammy.
voice cues
Yeah.
pop up as you're driving. So, for example, if you were about to hit a freeway exit, you get a voice alert 500 feet away.
Yes.
Right before you're about to hit the exit, when you're on the exit, it wants to make sure you make that exit.
It was real annoying. It was a constant source of hassle. It would say from a quarter mile out to a half mile out to 2 miles out to 200 feet. It was weird.
How did this compare to the standalone TomTom app?
It's almost exactly the same. The standalone TomTom app is great when you're in the country someplace. When you're in an urban area where there's a lot of transitions, it gets really obnoxious. It's a little bit better now, but it's still not as good as, say, the Android Maps app as far as I'm concerned.
Android navigation now.
The Android Nav. This does promise some special features, which I've never actually seen in action. It's supposed to prompt you to avoid traffic snarls. I was in the worst traffic jam I've ever seen in San Francisco in 12 years of living here last week. It did not prompt me to avoid that.
So the database it's pulling from probably wasn't updated with the...
It was not, but I think that there was a crash here. It popped up with a crash earlier today when I was looking at the maps. Let's see if anybody's had bad luck today.
As long as it shows the colors, and I get red for bad traffic and blinking yellow for medium traffic.
It still does that.
Okay, that's good enough. And hopefully Google will also release their own standalone Maps application that you can download if you update to iOS 6 and are not happy with the built-in Maps.
I think this is a step back. I think they have to really look at improving this for the next iteration of iOS. And it's a bummer to have to use it for a year if you're an iOS user, I think.
So out of the Maps app we go, and one of the other really big features that they've touted is Passbook.
Yes.
The new iPhone does not have NFC, but Apple believes that Passbook is sufficient for all your ticketing and shopping needs.
Well, because what do you love more than QR codes in this world, Norm?
Barcodes.
Barcodes.
I'm gonna take a step back. Barcodes, even.
This is a fake Starbucks card app. None of the Passbook stuff is working right now, but this is what it looks like. Basically, what this is a location and context-aware thing that pops up and gives you things like movie tickets, your check-in for a plane ride, hotel information. It seems to be HTML5 based in a lot of cases, or tied into an app. So, for example, I have the Starbucks app on my phone, which makes me a little sad. And it's the same information as in my Starbucks card. Theoretically, would be on this thing.
So, are there settings for Passbook?
There are no settings for Passbook. I don't know how they get installed. I assume that you click on something either in an app or on a website. There doesn't seem to be even any overarching control panel for
no management
Passbook.
for Passbook.
No, it seems like it's
app to app, A to A communication.
It's a view for data contained in other apps and websites.
But one of the things it also do is time gating. So, for example, if you have plane tickets and it knows that you are an hour and a half away from your flight, it'll pop up in your lock screen so you can scan your ticket.
That's what they say. I have not seen that working in action.
Okay.
Although it should pop up with the Starbucks thing when you walk by a Starbucks. That's one of the other things that they say it'll do.
All right, so let's talk about one of our favorite.
No, the question mark is the appropriate answer there. Siri. You Siri, Norm?
One of our favorite features to make fun of, Siri, which was introduced with the iPhone 4S and iOS 5, now is improved. Siri is smarter, theoretically. What can Siri do?
Is the operative
what can Siri theoretically do now that it couldn't do before?
So let's. The thing that doesn't seem to have changed is the voice recognition stuff. It's still a little bit frustrating to a lot frustrating, depending on what you're trying to get it to do.
That's not something that I would imagine Apple would really boast about. Siri is now 50% more accurate.
They are definitely not boasting about it, but after having used it for the last 2 months, assuming that stuff on the back end isn't magically changing tonight. It does not do a particularly good job.
You would hope
recognizing
that
your
it's
voice.
Continuous improvement on the voice
on the
recognition
back
front.
end. Yeah. So one of the things that Siri does now that it didn't do before is sports scores.
All right.
For example, did the Giants win last night?
And hopefully it knows that it means SF Giants, and did. Whoa, narrowly. Some context aware. Siri got spunky.
She is a little smarter than before. One of the things that's interesting about this is if you have two teams that are the same in different sports, like the Giants and the New York Giants, it usually picks the one that played last.
Excellent.
That's great for baseball fans, bad for football fans. Big problems here. Real problems.
Well, no baseball teams named the Falcons. That is correct.
You are correct, sir.
Now, what other sports can you do?
You can do everything I did college football. Did the Tennessee Volunteers win last weekend?
Do people really call them the volunteers? Why not the vols?
Volunteers were defeated by the Gators last
See, a
Saturday.
different
Ooh.
scoreboard,
The
too.
final score was
It's
37-20.
collegiate, so it's not all
And
dotty.
you know what? Didn't nearly
No, that
edge
was-
out at all. That was a
you know,
that
it-
was a nice blowout.
It was a great game until the third quarter, or so I've been told. You can do restaurant stuff now, so I want to get a hamburger.
Any sassy
I
critiques?
found 15 burger restaurants. 12 of them are fairly close to you.
Now, this is interesting because it completely whiffed that there is a place that sells burgers literally 12 feet to the right of our
That's
office.
a database problem, right?
I mean, theoretically, they should have the menus and all that stuff there. I don't understand that, but whatever. You can also book reservations.
Okay.
I need a dinner reservation for 2 for sushi tonight at 7.
I'm looking for dinner sushi
And it gives me,
restaurants.
here
restaurants
are
have
3 different
tables
restaurants,
for two
well, a
around
bunch of
7
different
p.m.
restaurants. They all have reservations.
one you'd like to
I can
reserve.
tap them. It ties into the Open Up Table app, and it will give me a reservation for 2 people at 7 p.m. This
good.
works very consistently. I've tried this a bunch. I'm stunned that it works every time. You still have to look down and see what the restaurant is. But
And also what times are available?
yeah, but it'll give you, if 7's available, it defaults you to 7.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty good. You can post tweets
Oh,
and
okay.
Facebook status updates.
Perfect for driving.
Exactly. I just saw something amazing on the side of the road. To Twitter. That's not going to work.
Searching on Twitter for the side
Nope.
of the
Okay, try again. Post a tweet. I'm doing an iOS 6 quick look now. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Sorry, I don't understand. Post a tweet. I'm doing an iOS 6 quick look now.
So I tried doing this the other night.
Send it.
No,
I
go
need a
away.
contact name.
Quiet, you.
This is how it always ends, Siri.
The other day I was driving down the freeway trying to tweet about a concept car. Like there was a concept car with all the cool, weird wrapping and stuff on it. I was trying to tweet that I was driving behind one of those right then. By the time the tweet was composed, I had driven about 18 miles and the car was nowhere to be found anymore. So that stuff's not that good. But it is good at simple things like tweet, I'm hanging out with Norm now, exclamation point. Well,
Here's your tweet. Ready to send it?
add a person from my contacts, Norman Chan.
I updated your tweet.
Well,
To send it?
yes, please.
You sound so defeated.
This is the tweet ended up, I'm hanging out with Norma now, exclamation point. A person for my contacts, Norman Chen.
My goodness.
That was a bad tweet. I'm going to delete that tweet right now.
Oh my goodness. So not only can you send tweets, but you can also post to Facebook, assuming that you can enunciate well enough so that Siri can understand
Oh, so you're saying
your
this is my
dictation
fault?
and your syntax.
I'm the victim here.
What other things can Siri do?
Hold on, I got to delete this tweet.
Okay. There you go. Siri can also be used to launch applications. This is something that a lot of people really wanted, some app integration with
Would you like
Siri.
me to show you?
Yeah, show me.
I d-
Launch Tweetbot. My nose is stopped up. It launched Tweetbot. Launch Rdio. And that works really well. Now, the thing you don't have with this feature is the ability to do things from inside, like play RDO music. That'll start playing the music on the default iOS app. Or
Looking
look for
forward to
RDO in my music library, which clearly isn't going to work. So,
Not perfectly useful, and that's one of the reasons that Siri is still in beta right now.
yeah, and it's they actually explicitly call it out as being in beta. It's definitely a little bit better than it was before. Some of the new stuff is kind of cool. You can also look at movies and things like that. It'll tell you what's playing at theaters near you. But it's almost always faster to just type what you're looking for.
And as we demonstrated earlier, about 50% of the time, it ends in arguing with Siri and yelling at the phone.
I get angry and sad. Let's look at the browser next, because there have been some small changes there. I don't use Chrome on the desktop. I don't know if you, or Safari on the desktop. I'm more of a Chrome guy. But you can do things like, you can reading list stuff now. And when you reading list stuff, then it actually caches it on the device, which seems like a improvement over the previous ways of doing things.
Yeah, I'm still using Instapaper, and all I'll do is make Instapaper Marco improve Instapaper, so I use that more and less.
That's kind of where I'm at. But if you don't want to pay for Instapaper, if $3 is too much for you, go nuts. This will do exactly what you're looking for. You can sync tabs between your desktop and iOS devices now.
Again, really only useful if you're using both Safari on your desktop
Right.
and Safari on the phone. Right now, we're actually using more Chrome on desktop and Chrome on
And
the
with
phone.
real versions of Chrome on the phone, there's no reason not to just use Chrome. iMessage.
Okay.
So
Love iMessage.
iMessage is great. I'm going to switch over to the iPad now, so you're going to lose video for just a sec. One of the things that's great about iMessage is that finally the problem that you had where you couldn't have all of the same potential addresses for iMessages, for example, your cell phone number and your email addresses would show up on the phones, but you couldn't add a phone number to an iPad. Which was a little bit frustrating if you were trying to get messages and somebody kept sending text messages to your iPad and you're sitting in the living room and your phone's in the bedroom and you didn't realize that Gary was trying to get in touch with you all day long. You can add phone numbers to iMessage now.
You can add multiple ways to one identity.
Yes.
Multiple identifiers.
Another thing that happens is when you add an identity to iMessage on one device instead of another, then it actually sends a notification to all the other devices that says, hey, you added this to this address to your iPhone, whatever.
It's still not smart enough to know that if you have your phone and your iPad and you're on your laptop, and you're using your laptop, I only want iMessage, for example, to pop up on my laptop, and I don't want it to pop on my phone or iPad.
That's correct, but it's better about syncing red message state across devices.
It's still going to
now,
pop
it seems
up.
like. It'll still pop up in all the places, but you won't get the annoying. It doesn't do the thing like the fast forward replay of the last 3 days text messages when you log into your work machine on Monday. Next on the list is update all apps. Oh, this is lovely. I don't know if you ever update your iOS apps. I hardly ever do because it's a big pain in the ass.
I do it once a month and I just do update all.
Yeah, so you can update all
Without having to put in your password.
without having to put in your password, assuming you've done it in the last 5 days.
Also, you can download free apps
Boom.
now without having to
Really?
enter your password.
That I didn't know.
Yes.
They also redesigned all the stores. So it's very much more like the Google Play model of
It's still separate stores for apps, for music, and for books, right?
That is correct. You access the bookstore through iBooks, the music store through iTunes,
And the App Store
music
through-
and video store through iTunes, and then the App Store is the App Store. But they all kind of have this shared design with a carousel up at the top, and then slides. It's performing
that
really
is
poorly.
super sluggish.
I think it's probably because I'm updating all those apps in the background, if I had to guess. But it kind of does, the normal sliding and fill in. It could also be because our internet's been wonky again. So yeah, that stuff. I kind of like the old version better. One of the things that's missing now is the ability to separate charts. You can see top grossing, but you can't see top volume sold. So you end up with the nice thing about the top volume. Hold on.
Top number of units.
Wait,
sold.
hold on. They fixed it. They fixed it in the final. Never mind. You used to just be able to see the difference between paid and top grossing is top grossing includes in-app purchases. So that was always stuff like Smurf Village and the free-to-play games. Whereas paid was actually stuff that maybe costs real money and is kind of useful and doesn't necessarily include a whole shitload of in-app purchases. So I found that the paid one was much more useful than the top grossing. They've added that since beta, the last
Now,
beta.
if you don't update to iOS 6, you're also still going to see this new interface.
Is that
for
true?
The store. That's what I think. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I
It
didn't
was
know
not, I don't think it's only a part of iOS.
You think
6.
this is an HTML5?
Yes.
Okay, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to go back out.
And then we also have, in addition to Twitter integration.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about a little about this earlier. Facebook integration. So you can post photos directly to Facebook.
Of course. Why would you not want to do that? Here's a photo I took of a double rainbow the other day in San Francisco. And I'm going to share. The share menu has actually been updated. It's still not something people can plug into, but it has a lot more options. This used to be just email. I think it was like email, iPhoto, maybe Mobile Me, some stuff you never ever use.
Yeah, this is actually now looks a lot like the share menu from iPhoto, where from iPhoto you could send an email, you could post to different services. Now you can do the photo stream, send to Facebook.
So just like you could send to Twitter with the previous version of iOS, you get a kind of custom Facebook-y looking dialogue that says, hey, and then you can post your message. This was a cool double rainbow in San Francisco. Mash the button. You can add location if you want. You can share it to specific friends or to specific audiences, whatever. Clearly, my Facebook setup is disastrous that I have this many different kind of profiles and groups and stuff. I'm not going to do that right now, but it works. There's a
Will
bunch of
upload
different
the full,
places.
full resolution, or does it compress it?
It seems like it compresses it a little bit.
That's
but
not surprising.
I mean, I can't tell if that's happening on Facebook's end or if it's happening on iOS's end, frankly.
My bet is iOS's end to save on bandwidth.
That's possible. They don't do that on Twitter, though, it doesn't seem like.
Right.
You can go in, you can figure how that works. There's a Facebook entry in here. You don't see my address, that's great. You can also update your contacts just like you could with Twitter. So pull the information that you have that's on Facebook into your
That
contacts
I think
app.
is excellent because more people store their phone numbers on Facebook than they do on Twitter.
It's pretty good, except for because of the way Facebook changed the email settings so that everybody's default email is that Facebook email nonsense.
Yes, that also is added.
That pulls in all of them, and a lot of people didn't have their accurate email addresses anymore. So I would recommend really looking closely at your friends before you do that.
Prune your friends before you import them
you
onto
go.
your iPad.
You also get more control over Facebook settings and stuff and notifications now. So you can actually control individual notifications, and that's in the app, I guess. So that's Facebook. Calendar integration with Facebook events.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
So for birthdays?
Not just birthdays, but also events aren't just for birthdays. Also, if you sign on to go to somebody's party or something like that, that stuff will show up here. I thought that was pretty useful because that's really the only thing I use Facebook for at this point.
Right. Otherwise, I would use Google Calendar, and Google Calendar it has traditionally been a hassle to integrate with iCal.
Especially multiple calendars.
Mm-hmm.
Last couple of things, photo streams are shareable now.
I think this is one of the most exciting features, at least on paper. Who knows how it'll actually be in use in iOS 6.
So I have shared several photos with you.
So yeah, let's go create a new photo stream.
Okay.
So you can do that just by, this is your photo stream, this is your typical
This is
last
all of my
1,000
photos from the last 1,000 photos, yeah.
Which gets filtered out. You can
There's
manage
a
them.
bunch of receipts.
You can edit. But if you go to photo stream, if you go back out one, there's a plus button in the top left corner.
Well, you can also share and make one too, which is what I was going to do. But okay.
So you can create a new one.
So I'm going to
new photo stream.
If I make one here, it's going to show somebody's email address. So I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
But you put in an email address for people you want to share it with. You name it, and you say whether or not you want it to be publicly visible on the web or only to people who are authorized in iOS or presumably iPhoto and Aperture. When you do that, it creates one of these things. These are separate photo streams. You can make as many of them as you want. The storage for photos and photo streams does not count toward your iCloud storage.
That's excellent.
So
look, I just accepted your shared photo stream.
Fantastic.
To these photos. And I'm downloading 43 new photos right now.
To your iPad.
To my iPad, really fast. It's happening. And then you get pop-up messages on your iPhone, of course, that I've accepted. And now that I've browsed through the photos, for example, I've opened up a photo, I can add a comment to the photo. And so I think this is actually Apple's social media play.
This is like their third try for social media, right?
This is their path. Because this is a way for small groups of friends to share photos, which they care about. Like I import all the photos I take with my digital camera on my iPad.
Yep.
And now I have a way to share select ones to a certain group of friends, and they can comment on each of those as long as they have iOS devices.
So I would agree with that, except the only thing that they have messed up is there's no kind of contact list, no friends list functionality. Which
Right.
is
So
key
I
to
can't
this whole
see.
thing working.
I can't see on the bottom right now. I can see who owns this photo stream. It says it's shared by Verlin Smith III, but I can't see a list of all the other people unless I go back out of the photo stream and then edit.
Yeah, you have to
edit and click, and then therefore I'll see all the subscribers, and I can go into their contacts.
So when somebody shares a photo list with you, then you can grab photos and pull them into your own camera roll, from which you can do whatever you want with them. So it's not like they're protected or anything like that. It's literally, if you want to have a setup for your kids or your dog or whatever to share photos with friends or family, it makes it really easy to do that.
Now, I don't know if this actually takes away from the 1,000 count. Like my personal photo stream will still hold 1,000 images, but
they said it really explicitly does not take away from iCloud, from the iCloud storage.
So this is just free storage, free extra photos.
It seems like free storage for photos.
And also you get an email alert when someone shares a photo stream with you. And if you don't have iOS 6, you can go either join the photo stream or click on the bottom.
I'm going to view this stream on the web.
And it will open up a web page, and it'll have those photos laid out automatically, in which you can browse them. And they're not really loading right now for some reason.
They're loading in slowly.
Very, very slowly.
We will not see the clouds and pops today, unfortunately. This is, again, it's worth mentioning that we're doing this the day before release, so they could have, things could be broke.
Oh,
you know?
this is working on my Nexus 7.
I'm going to bust over and switch back to the iPhone real quick.
One more thing.
One more thing. We'll be right back. The last thing that we're going to talk about is the Panorama. This was talked about during the iOS 5 keynote, the iPhone 5 keynote, but it's actually a feature for anyone with a 4S or newer, I believe.
And even the iPod Touches.
5th gen iPod Touch.
Yes,
only.
new iPod Touches. And so in the camera app.
So are we still getting, I think we are, nope, did we lose feed?
No,
No, there it goes,
yeah.
okay. So the way this works is you hold it up here, and then you just move from left to the right, keeping the thing on the line. It tells you whether you're going too fast or too slow. And I'm aiming too high, and it's going to chop some out. And then you go, Norm is frozen in position there. I'm going too fast again. Okay. And we have a panorama.
There you go. You can save a about 28 megapixel image if you're using an 8 megapixel camera.
It's a beefy
massive
image. Yeah, so I'm going to zoom in here. I don't know if I can. There we go. So you can see what this one looks like. I went a little bit too fast. There's some stuff that ends up being too thin. Norm's got some distortion on his arm there, you can see. But it is a really, really big image. We did a better one earlier. I'll show you that one. Office.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's a panorama. This is nothing new. If you've been using iOS for a long time, you've been able to download Panorama apps for 99 cents since probably the iPhone 3GS or 4 came out.
It's a very good implementation, though, in terms of how it guides you.
I would say it's an okay implementation.
And I think that using the vertical portrait orientation, so you get the tallest image possible, is also smart.
The one thing that I really don't like is that you can only go left to right. You can't go right to left. Sometimes you're in a position where going right to left would be better. I mean, it's nitpicky. If you want more panoramas, or you want to do it on a device that is not supported by iOS 6, then I'm sure there will continue to be apps like Pano and those things in the App Store.
So that is it. The new things in iOS 6. Oh, we do have one more thing?
Okay, one more thing. One more. There's a clock on the iPad. So it's a world clock. It has a stopwatch. It's the world's biggest, dumbest stopwatch. There's a circle to stop and start.
You're right. There was no clock app.
No clock.
No clock app on previous iOS.
Nope. There's an egg timer type thing. You can actually set the song that it plays on the bottom. Well, it seems like you can. Wait, here we go. You got to go to sounds. And then my favorite part, there's actually an alarm. So if you use your iPad as your alarm, which I kind of do sometimes when I'm traveling, because you're in a hotel room, there's one power plug by the bed. You plug your phone or the iPad in.
Good point.
Now you don't have to think about that anymore. You can just plug the iPad in. I like the way that they use the extra space, because it's a ridiculously oversized display. They use the extra space to show you where your alarms are.
Oh my goodness.
It's super silly, but it worked pretty well.
So added the clock. There's still no compass on the iPad.
Still no compass.
They've removed YouTube, removed Maps.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. Yeah,
Added
YouTube's
new
gone.
Maps. You can still download the Google YouTube app for free. There are ads now in the iOS store.
If you own a channel, it makes it a little bit easier to subscribe to stuff and follow stuff and share things with your channel people. And they show ads on YouTube now with the Google YouTube app.
So that's iOS 6. It's free if you have, again, iPad 2 or newer, iPhone 3GS or newer, or I believe 3rd gen iPod Touch.
4th gen or
4th
newer.
gen iPod Touch
Yeah.
or newer. And of course, if you buy an iPhone 5 or new iPod Touch, it'll already be installed.
You won't have a choice.
You won't have a choice at all. The new Maps is gonna get the most press, I think, but it's really that phone do not disturb, that VIP list, and in my opinion, that shared photo stream that's gonna be the most fun to use.
You think that's? I think this shared photo stream is pretty awesome. I think it's easy enough that my mom and dad can use it, which is a big improvement over most other photo sharing. And because you have that share to web functionality, it makes it much more usable for people who don't have these devices. Because I mean, frankly, that's the secret of Facebook, is that you can look at anybody's pictures.
And your devices didn't feel any slower with iOS 6.
The 4S was fine. The iPad 2 was fine. The Maps app, especially when you're doing the 3D rendering stuff like we're doing right now, gets real chunky, even on the iPad 3. But I mean, it's not. I don't feel like there's anything nefarious going on. I think it's more just this is a lot of data to come out. I mean, this is essentially what Google Earth did. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good upgrade all around. I think that losing YouTube and the Google Maps app is a significant decrease. I think of all the things that people are going to be upset about, the loss of subway directions suck if you live in a city and you rely on them. Other than that, it's pretty good. So
right.
for Tested, I'm Will.
I'm Norm.
See you guys later.
Bye.